Weeks passed. Across Reach space, something enormous was being built. Not a ship, not a fleet, not a weapon in the traditional sense. Something far more dangerous. Knowledge, designs, calculations. Every scientist, engineer, military strategist, and energy specialist Kenny could spare had quietly been gathered into a single classified project. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was being referred to by a nickname that spread through the highest levels of Reach Command. The Blackout. Nobody outside the inner circle knew what it truly was. Only that Kenny himself had authorized it. And that was enough to make people nervous. Because whenever Kenny personally got involved in something, it usually changed the course of history. The project had reached a critical point. They had the designs. They had the theories. What they lacked were materials. Rare materials. Enough rare materials to power something on a planetary scale. Which was why Kenny found himself once again heading toward Earth. The journey was quiet. For once, he traveled alone. No Pines, no Lyra, no Celine, no advisors, no generals, just Kenny and his thoughts. The stars streaked past outside the cruiser. The war felt distant from here. Smaller somehow. Yet Kenny knew better. Every day people still died. Every day fleets still fought. Every day House Reigns still existed. That alone was reason enough to keep moving. Hours later, Earth appeared before him, still beautiful, still ancient, still carrying the weight of humanity's history. The cruiser descended through atmosphere, clouds parted, cities stretched across the horizon, millions of lights sparkled beneath him. The capital welcomed him like it always did, the Eclipse champion, the founder of Reach, the man who had become one of the most famous individuals in the galaxy. Security escorted him directly through the palace. Nobody stopped him. Nobody questioned him. The Emperor had already cleared everything. Within minutes, Kenny entered the familiar audience chamber. The Emperor stood near a massive observation window, hands folded behind his back, looking out across Earth. Without turning around, he spoke. "You only visit me when you're about to do something dangerous." Kenny smiled. The Emperor finally turned. "And judging by your face." A pause. This is going to be very dangerous." Kenny sat down. "Probably." The Emperor laughed. "Good." Then he sat opposite him. The room became quiet. Eventually the Emperor folded his hands. "What do you need?" Straight to business. Exactly how Kenny liked it. A hologram activated above the table. The Emperor's eyebrows immediately rose, then rose higher, then higher again. What in the hell is that? Kenny leaned back. The next phase. The Emperor stared. The schematics rotated slowly. Energy calculations, planetary grids, magnetic pulse projections, power consumption charts, military applications. The more the Emperor read, the quieter he became. Eventually he sat back, staring, thinking, calculating. Then finally he looked up. "You want to turn their technology off?" Kenny nodded. The Emperor laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the room. "Of course you do." Another laugh. "I was expecting another invasion." Kenny shrugged. "Invasions kill people." The Emperor nodded. "Fair point." The ruler of humanity studied the plans again. "If this works..." A pause. House Reign effectively loses everything. Kenny nodded. Again. The Emperor whistled. Slowly. "You're trying to throw them back a century, roughly." The older man looked impressed and slightly terrified, which Kenny considered a healthy reaction. The Emperor pointed toward the hologram. "What do you need?" The list appeared. Rare minerals, exotic conductive compounds, energy stabilizers, several classified materials, a few things so expensive most governments couldn't afford them. The Emperor read silently, then smiled, then started laughing again. Kenny frowned. "What?" The Emperor pointed. "This." Another point. "This." Another. And this. Kenny waited. The Emperor grinned. "I've got all of it." Silence. Kenny blinked. "Seriously?" The Emperor nodded. "Most of it is sitting in warehouses, waiting for a war that never happened. Seems like a good use for it." The ruler of Reach smiled. "That solved a lot of problems." The Emperor leaned back. "Anything else?" Kenny considered it, then shook his head. "No." The Emperor frowned. "No?" "No." The older ruler looked suspicious. "You need engineers, no. You need scientists, no. You need military advisors, no." The Emperor folded his arms. "Why?" Kenny's answer came immediately. Because I made a deal. Silence. The Emperor already knew where this was going. Kenny continued. When this war started. A pause. I promised you something. The Emperor nodded slowly. You did. You promised House Reach would handle House Rain. Kenny folded his arms. I'm keeping that promise. The room became quiet. The Emperor studied him carefully. For several moments he said nothing, then eventually smiled. A genuine smile. One ruler to another, one ally to another, one friend to another. I appreciate that. Kenny nodded. The Emperor stood, then extended his hand. Kenny took it. The handshake felt symbolic somehow, important. The Emperor looked him directly in the eye. Then finish it. Silence. The words lingered. Finish it properly. Make sure there's never another House Rain. Kenny nodded. I intend to. The materials were transferred immediately. Cargo manifests, transport authorizations, security escorts. Everything happened within hours. By the following day, dozens of heavily guarded freight vessels departed Earth, each carrying pieces of the Blackout Project, the future weapon, the future turning point, the future nightmare of House Rain. When Kenny finally returned to Reach, the reception was immediate. Scientists celebrated, engineers celebrated, military commanders celebrated. The project could finally move forward. Construction began within hours. Massive underground facilities activated. Assembly lines started moving. Entire mountains were hollowed out to house components. Energy reactors were diverted. Security increased tenfold. Nobody outside the project knew exactly what was being built, only that it mattered, and that Kenny personally oversaw every stage. Days later, he stood inside the primary construction chamber, watching workers assemble components the size of buildings. The blackout had stopped being an idea. It had become real. Beside him stood Pines. The man whistled softly. That's definitely illegal somewhere. Kenny laughed. Probably. Lyra appeared nearby carrying reports. Celine followed. Darius shortly after. The family gathered around the growing machine. None of them fully understood its scale yet, but all of them understood its purpose. The end game had begun, far away, unaware of what was coming. House Rain continued preparing for war, still believing their technology gave them an advantage, still believing their defenses made them safe, still believing they had time. They were wrong. The chapter ended with Kenny standing beneath the growing framework of the Blackout Project, watching sparks rain from construction equipment, watching the future take shape, and knowing that somewhere out there, his father was running out of chances.